Good evening, dear viewers. I'm your host, Timothy, and welcome to Ghostly Broadcast. Today, we venture into the enigmatic corners of the unknown. We've received 3 chilling accounts from across North America. Not your usual tales whispered in the dark, but true incidents that invoke deep unease and memories that time refuses to blur. Let's dive into these unnerving narratives directly from those who lived them with our first story. My name is Jake, and I'm writing to you from a small town near Montana, USA. I recently experienced something that has both comforted and haunted me since the passing of my beloved wife. I felt an urge to share my story with your listeners. Ever since the loss of my dear Sarah, I've been spending my nights alone, feeling the emptiness of our house. Our memories hang on the walls and fill the rooms, and every corner seems to whisper her name. The pain has been unbearable, and the loneliness has taken a toll on me. I've tried to fill my days with work and hobbies, but when the night falls, I find myself wandering the halls, missing her smile, her touch, her scent. The house has become a museum of our love, and I'm the lone visitor, plagued by memories. One chilly evening, as I was preparing dinner for one, I suddenly caught a whiff of something in the air. It was a gentle hint of jasmine, Sarah's perfume. My heart skipped a beat. I looked around, half expecting to see her standing there, but there was no one. The house was as silent and empty as it had been since she left. The scent lingered, following me from room to room. It was so real, so vivid, that I could almost feel her presence. I searched the house, even checking the bottle of her perfume on her dresser, but it was sealed, untouched. The experience left me both comforted and deeply unsettled, as if I was being drawn towards something I couldn't quite grasp. Was it simply my longing for her, playing tricks on my senses, or was there something more to this fragrance that seemed to permeate the very walls of our home? A few nights later, the scent of jasmine filled the air again. This time it was accompanied by something far more unsettling. I had just finished washing my face, and as I looked up into the bathroom mirror, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There in the reflection stood Sarah, looking just as she did in our happier days. Her eyes met mine, filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. She seemed so real, yet when I turned around, there was nothing but the empty room behind me. Panic set in, and I stumbled back, unable to tear my eyes away from her image in the mirror. Was I losing my mind? The reflection was so tangible, so present, that I reached out to touch it, only to find cold glass under my trembling fingers. I stood there for what felt like hours, trapped between horror and longing, as her image continued to gaze back at me, both familiar and foreign. In the following days, her reflection began to follow me. No matter where I was in the house, her image would appear in every mirror I passed. It became a silent chase, her reflection always watching me, those eyes filled with an indescribable emotion. I tried to communicate, to ask her what she wanted, but there was never a response, only that constant silent observation. I couldn't escape it. Her image was there when I brushed my teeth in the morning, when I glanced at the hallway mirror, even in the reflection of the kitchen window. I started avoiding mirrors altogether, but I could still feel her presence, always watching, always there. Friends and family noticed my distress, but how could I explain the inexplicable? The house, once filled with love, became a labyrinth of terror and mystery, and I felt myself unraveling, caught in a web of longing, fear, and confusion. One evening, as I was walking past the living room mirror, I stopped, feeling a sudden calmness wash over me. I looked up, and there she was, her reflection more serene than before, a soft smile on her lips. This time, there was no fear, only an understanding that seemed to pass between us. Slowly, her image began to fade, like a gentle mist lifting with the dawn. I reached out, tears in my eyes, but all that met my touch was the cool surface of the mirror. She was gone, and with her disappearance, the scent of jasmine also vanished. I was left standing in the silence of our home, comforted yet bewildered by what I had experienced. In the following days, her reflection never returned, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she had somehow reached out to me, to comfort me, to let me know she was still with me. The house no longer felt empty. It was filled with a new sense of peace, a quiet understanding that love transcends even the boundaries of life and death. Our second story. Hi Timothy, my name's Eric, and I'm writing from a small town near Boise, Idaho. I experienced something terrifying one stormy night when I was home alone. It's a night I'll never forget, and I felt a strong need to share this with your audience. It was one of those nights where the weather seemed to mirror my mood. My parents were away for the weekend and I was home alone, feeling a bit anxious about being in charge of the house. As the storm outside grew wilder, the wind howling through the trees and rain lashing against the windows, I tried to distract myself with some video games and snacks. But the weather was relentless, and every sudden clap of thunder made me jump. The house seemed to creak and groan, each noise amplified by my imagination. I had never been afraid to be alone before, but that night something felt off and a sense of unease settled over me. As I was settling down in the living room, ready to watch a movie and ride out the storm, the television suddenly turned on by itself. Startled, I stared at the screen filled with static, its white noise filling the room. I grabbed the remote, checking to see if I had accidentally pressed a button, but the remote was off. Confused and slightly unnerved, I tried to turn the TV off, but it wouldn't respond. Then, something even stranger happened. Amidst the chaos of the screen, I began to notice images, faint and distorted at first, but gradually becoming clearer. They were images of my own room. I could see my couch, my bookshelf, everything just as it was. A chill ran down my spine as I realized that what I was seeing was not some random interference, but something far more inexplicable. My heart pounded as I continued to stare at the television screen, now showing my room from different angles. Then something appeared that froze me to the spot. An unknown figure, shadowy and indistinct, began to materialize on the screen. It seemed to be moving around my room, its movements deliberate and unnerving. I couldn't make out any features, but I could feel its presence, and it felt malicious. The figure seemed to be searching for something, and as it moved closer to where the television stood, I felt a growing sense of dread. Then, to my horror, it stopped and turned towards the screen, as if it had sensed me watching. Its face, a blank void, seemed to be reaching towards me, and I could feel its eyes, though I couldn't see them. Fixed on mine, I was paralyzed, trapped in this nightmarish connection with something I couldn't understand or explain. The figure on the screen continued to reach towards me, its form becoming more distinct, more real with every passing second. It was as if it were trying to cross the barrier between the television and my reality. My mind screamed for me to run, but I was frozen, unable to break the connection. The room felt colder, and the static noise from the TV became a deafening roar. The figure's hand seemed to stretch impossibly closer, and I could almost feel its touch. Time seemed to stretch and warp, and all that existed was me, the room, and this otherworldly entity. The fear became a physical weight pressing down on me, suffocating me as the unknown figure became more insistent, more demanding. Just as the terror reached its unbearable peak, and I felt that the figure would somehow reach out and touch me, the power went out, the room plunged into darkness, and the television screen went blank. The connection was severed, and the oppressive presence was gone. I was left in the silent darkness, heart pounding, unable to believe what had just happened. I stumbled to find a flashlight, and with shaking hands, checked every corner of the room, every possible hiding spot. There was no sign of the figure, no trace of what had transpired. When the power came back on, the television remained off, and I couldn't bring myself to turn it on again. That night, I didn't sleep, and I kept every light in the house on. The storm eventually passed, and my parents returned, but I never told them what happened. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching me, had almost reached me. The terror of that night lingers, a constant reminder of the unknown that might be lurking just beyond the veil of our reality, waiting for the right moment to intrude. The third story. Timothy, my name is Lucas, and I'm reaching out to you from Sedona, Arizona. I recently moved into a new apartment, and something inexplicable occurred on my first night alone there. The experience has left me rattled, and I'm hoping that sharing it on your show might provide some understanding or closure. Moving into a new apartment was supposed to be a fresh start for me. The place was nice, a bit older but spacious and full of character. As a middle-aged bachelor, I was looking forward to setting it up just the way I liked. On my first night alone, I decided to celebrate with a nice dinner and some relaxing music. The evening started off pleasantly enough, but as the night wore on, a feeling of unease began to settle over me. The apartment was filled with unfamiliar noises, creaking floorboards, the distant sound of traffic, the wind against the windows. It was all so new, and I tried to brush off the feeling as just nerves from being in a strange place. But deep down something felt off, and I couldn't quite shake the feeling that I wasn't truly alone. As I was cleaning up after dinner, I heard something that made me stop dead in my tracks. A child's laughter. It was soft and fleeting, but unmistakably there. My heart started to race as I tried to pinpoint where the sound had come from. The apartment was supposed to be empty except for me. I checked the living room, the bathroom, even the small balcony, but there was no one there. The laughter seemed to have come from the empty room next door, which I planned to turn into a study. I stood at the door, listening, but all was silent. I rationalized it as a figment of my imagination, perhaps a sound from the neighbors or the street below, but something in me knew it was neither of those things. The laughter had been clear and close, and it had sounded joyful, yet somehow it sent a chill down my spine. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the memory of that laughter. It echoed in my mind, mingling with my own growing sense of unease. I tried to distract myself with a book, but my eyes kept drifting towards the closed door of the empty room. Then it happened again, the faint sound of a child's giggle, followed by a quick shadow darting past the hallway. I jumped up, my heart pounding in my chest, and rushed to the door. I flung it open, expecting to find someone there, but the hallway was empty. I checked the entire apartment, looking under beds and behind curtains, but there was no sign of anyone. The shadowy figure of the child, the sound of the laughter, they were both gone. But the feeling they left behind was very real, a mixture of fear and disbelief that settled deep in my gut. The laughter didn't stop. It continued through the night, growing louder and more persistent. I would hear it coming from different parts of the apartment, always just out of sight. Sometimes it would be a giggle, other times a full-throated laugh, always joyful but increasingly unsettling. I searched the apartment over and over, turning on every light, opening every closet, but found nothing. The shadowy figure of the child never reappeared, but the sound of its laughter became a constant presence, following me, taunting me. The chase became a game, a nightmarish game where I was both hunter and hunted. I even called a friend, trying to explain what was happening, but the words sounded absurd even to my own ears. I was alone in this, trapped in my new apartment with something I couldn't see, couldn't touch, but that I knew was there. As abruptly as it began, the experience ended. The laughter, the feeling of being watched, the cold chill that had settled over the apartment, all of it just stopped. I was left standing in the middle of my living room, the silence now deafening, the emptiness complete. I checked the time and it was already morning, the first light of dawn filtering through the curtains. The ordeal had lasted the entire night, and yet it felt like only a moment had passed. I was left in a state of shock and disbelief, unable to reconcile what had happened with what I knew to be real. The apartment was just as it had been, untouched, unchanged, and yet everything was different. I never heard the laughter again, never saw the shadowy figure, but the memory of that night lingers, a haunting reminder that some things are beyond our understanding, and that sometimes the walls between our world and others are thin and easily breached. And there we have it, 3 unsettling encounters that leave us questioning the very fabric of our reality. These stories remind us that the unknown is never far away, lurking just beyond our understanding, waiting to reveal itself. If these tales resonated with you or sent shivers down your spine, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, exploring the unexplained, the mysterious, and the otherworldly. Until next time, keep your eyes open, and remember, the extraordinary can be found in the most ordinary of places. Good night.